Hello. If there's one thing in common with nearly every problem our dogs have, the great majority of problems anyway, it is stress. Now, when we think of stress, we think, oh, I've got too much work to do, there's a load of worry on you. But stress is really about anything that gets us or the dog aroused. So in the dog's case, what could it be? It could be a barking fit at the window. It could be somebody shouts at the dog. It could be playing with the dog. It's all sorts of things it can be. But every time the dog gets over-aroused, overexcited, maybe scared, the brain is going to flood with adrenaline, cortisol, fight, flight, action chemicals. Now, that happens a lot of the time, and each time it builds up because these things can take several days to drain away. Now, sometimes we liken this to a bucket filling up, the stress bucket. Another way of looking at it is a bit like a pressure cooker. So one thing happens and there's a little bit more pressure. Another thing happens, it builds up the pressure, it builds up the pressure. In a healthy situation, the air vents and it hisses out at a sensible rate and so on. But if that pressure cooker gets too full, what's going to happen? It's going to blow. And then there's going to be a real mess, isn't there? There's going to be things broken, there's going to be water everywhere. In a way, that's a little bit like when the dog explodes. Pressure builds up over days, one thing on top of another thing, on top of another thing, until the dog explodes. And then you have fallout all over the place. So the things that I would say in many of our dogs' lives that build up, common things that build up this sort of stress are barking at a window, seeing things going past and barking. Now, every time the dog does that, it builds up the pressure of stress. Then you can make it worse, of course, by not helping the dog, by shouting at the dog. Another thing which people don't often realise is that in something like play, there is a certain amount of play, it's just perfect. And like us, dogs do need a certain amount of stress, but not too much. So it's the same with anything. Playing a few throws of the ball, brilliant. But you start doing it too much, then the dog gets totally hyped up and wired and it becomes obsessed with the ball. And again, you cause huge big problems of stress where you're actually thinking you're relieving the dog. The other things which cause a lot of stress are too much vigorous hands-on play. I liken it to if you're tickling a child, eventually that child will end up in tears. Certain dogs need more careful handling generally. Another thing which people don't tend to think about is that too much pressure put on the dog through commands and training can do the same thing. If a dog is already stressy, frightened, over hyperactive or anything like that, it's not probably in the mental state to find it easy to obey commands and to do training. So that would also, and also a lot of these dogs, they really do want to please, and it's a big pressure on the dog. I would say that another area is not enough choice, not enough freedom to choose what they're going to do. So the whole stress thing, if people can relieve the stress in their dogs, most problems will improve. It might not be the whole thing that you need, but it certainly is a background to making it improve. On the other hand as well, we need to be looking at the things that actually help the dog, if you like, to bring the pressure down in the pressure cooker. Dogs do a lot of things themselves, which, they get to the top, it's nearly overflowing, and what they do, they'll dig frantically in the carpet or the outside, they may run around in circles, they may bark at nothing, they may hump anything they can find, they'll do anything, all these things, chew themselves, lots of things to actually vent their own stress. Now we can really help them because there are a lot of things that we can give them to do when we can see that the stress levels are getting a little bit too high, that help them in a way that's more valuable, and it'll be in a way that is something that they're bred for. So hunting, for one thing, searching for their food all over the grass, that's something which is a really good decompressor. If the dog, say, comes back from a walk, hyped up to the nines, and there again, walks are meant to be things where the dogs come back have a drink, flop and done. But a lot actually come back more wired up than they go. So we've got running around in circles, we've got drinking frantically and then running around some more. One can bring the dog down from the high, probably by sprinkling some food about, but not obviously too much, especially if it's a deep-chested dog. We have to look out for bloat. But it's an indication then that actually the walk wasn't the right kind of walk if the dog comes back in that state and it needs looking at. So I would say it would be a good idea for everybody just to make a list. Make a list of the things that get your dog wired up in any way. Now that can be things that the dog loves, things that make him very excited. I mean, you think if we went on a big dipper or a bungee jump, it's not a bad thing, but we really would be wired up at the end of it. So anything that's exciting, the sort of play, how you interact with your dogs. If the whole family is a very noisy family, maybe the dog needs a little bit of a bolt hole. Think about how you play with the dog. Just make a list of the things that get him aroused, scared, excited, and just look to see what you can do about some of those things. Some can be done with simple management, like blocking view out of the window. Good luck.